This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have one of those days that I just really enjoy so much because we're going to be talking about something that I know virtually nothing about. I'm not even sure I know enough to say that I know enough to be dangerous. Or maybe that is the thing. I really do know enough just to really be dangerous on this. But it's going to be so interesting because it is a way that I think many people never consider as a way to make a little bit of money on the side or a whole bunch of money on the, and as their full-time business and occupation. And so we're going to be talking about real estate and how to be using it as an investment tool. So please join me in welcoming Chris Prefontaine to our program. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Chris Prefontaine is the best-selling author of Real Estate on Your Terms. A real estate investor with over 27 years experience in the field, Chris is the founder of Smart Real Estate Coach and host of the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. He lives in Newport, Rhode Island with his wife Kim and their family. Chris operates the family business with his son Nick, his daughter Kayla, his son-in-law Zach, and an amazing team. Together, they are co-authoring the book, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, which will be released later in 2019. He has been a big advocate of constant education. He and his family mentor, coach, consult, and actually partner with students around the country, teaching them to do exactly what his company does. Between their existing associates nationwide and their own deals, Chris and his family are still acquiring 5 to 10 properties every month and control, get this folks, between $20 and $30 million worth of real estate deals, all done on terms without using their own cash, credit, or signing for loans. Okay, now that I really piqued people's interest, Chris, welcome to our program.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, tell us how you got started in this, because this really is a fascinating business.
Well, this end of things, and we can go back to any details you want. When I say this end, the whole structuring of the terms deals, buying without banks, that's been since 2012, and that was a direct result of the real estate market tanking in 2008, me getting caught up in that whirlwind and then having to re-engineer the business and never go back there again. That's kind of how it all got prompted, which is always neat to see a stumbling block followed by something really cool that was changed because of the stumbling block.
Well, and you talk about that in your book, that you had a very successful company and real estate changed. I mean, we all know in 2008-ish, the market went, crashing down for a variety of reasons. And what I loved about it was you got in some pretty serious financial difficulties. You did not declare bankruptcy. You didn't, just toss up your hands and say, well, that didn't work. You got yourself out of it, and clearly it was a lot of hard work, but a big part of what you learned during that is what then became your business now. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, now I can say I never threw up my arms. I threw up my arms a lot. I just
right, and went probably a lot too.
I just didn't file bankruptcy, but so I hope this answers it. If not, go back for me. But the bottom line is all of the headaches that were sparked from the 2008 crash nationally were revolving around personally signing on bank loans, so therefore they can come back to you for your personal assets. It had to do with over-leveraged properties, all the things that conventional buyers think they have to do, put a standard deposit down, the rest gets financed, you're on it personally. And so we then said, what can we do? And over time, structure the business to be what it is now, which is we only buy with what we call lease purchase or owner financing. Both of those don't require a bank. The building I'm sitting in right now, talking to you, we recently purchased for our own offices, and that was done without a bank. And my son-in-law, Zach, and Kayla have their home now. They've been in it, I think, almost a year. That was done on lease purchase. So we do what we say we do. We do it personally and business now, and it's a lot better to put your head on the pillow at night knowing that you're not on all these loans personally. That's for sure. I can tell anyone that who signed on a loan before. So I don't know if that answers your question originally.
It does. And one of the things that struck me as I was reading your book was in order to do what we're going to discuss that you do with real estate, you have to obviously take it seriously. And there are some steps that we're going to talk about and things that, you need to make sure that you're not missing. But you need to set it up as a business, and you mentioned there at the start that you had signed for things personally and all those various things.
Yeah.
And, I was reading through your book and I thought, okay, so one of the first things if someone really wants to do this that they would need to do would be to set up a company. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail on that because we've talked about that on other programs, but part of that is a liability reason. I mean, you don't want your own house being taken away or, some things like that because, let's be honest, real estate can fluctuate, but, you set it up as a business and you take those steps, whether it's an LLC, whatever it is that you want to set up. And aside from anything else, then other people take you seriously. I remember 23, 24 years ago when I was setting up my business, one of the things that an advisor told me was if I didn't take myself seriously and set up as a business, then no one else would take me seriously either.
Right.
And so that's, I think, one of the first steps that we want people to understand is if you're going to do something like this, especially on this, maybe the scale like you might do, you really do have to set this up as a corporation of some to some degree, and as I said, we've talked about that with other programs. What states can you incorporate in for good benefits? Talk to your lawyers, all those various things. But so this really isn't something that you just decided, I think I'm going to jump into this. It really does take a lot of thought, and that's what I loved about your book. And let me get it up here so that we can see your book. There it is. Great book, quick read, and it really does go through things very quickly. Now, obviously, if I were considering being an investor, I would go back through it, take notes, read it very detailed. But it's a great book to give somebody an idea of how they can become this real estate investor without leveraging your personal assets, without giving yourself far too many sleepless nights, all these various things, because as you say right in the title, you're going to do it on your terms, and you're meaning that word in a variety of ways, but it's great that you've got this book.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A couple of things that you said are important to chat about. One is just the whole credibility and people taking you serious. You brought that up. The other piece of that is we teach our students to also join the BBB, and we tell them how to, and we actually give them support to do that. It just depends on what level they're in training with us, but that's a big thing. The amount of people that actually check the state you're in to see if you are an LLC and to see if you're a BBB is mind-blowing. I never knew that until we did it, and then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And then on your terms, you brought that up. That is a broad term. I mean, yes, how we buy, but I also mean your lifestyle too, right? On your terms. So that's pretty cool. And I don't know if I missed one of your points there, but I think those are super, super important. Part of the foundation when we set people up is exactly that. Let's get the company set up, depending on where you are, like you said, in the States. But also let's make sure then we set up what's logically next, just lead generation and things like that, obviously.
And I love that, you mentioned in your book that wherever you're doing this, make sure you're doing it the correct legal way, because laws vary by state. So we're going to go ahead and put a little disclaimer out there, check with your own state to find out. We do have foreign listeners, and so they might become investors. So, check into all of those things. Just make sure that you're doing it right at the very start, rather than having to go back and start over.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes to mind when you say that is whether you're listening this might be brand new to you in general, but if you're listening, you think, I may want to jump into this as a business someday, fine. But also, if you plan on buying your own house in the next, 7 or 10 years, 1 to 10 years, then you could utilize these techniques with your own home, like I alluded to at the beginning of the show. That's super important. So it's good for anyone, just a matter of how aggressive you'd like to get. And then you had mentioned that, obviously if you want to get more serious, then it's a little bit more than the book. Yes. I agree. So what we've done is we do the book and we have a free webinar. Why? Because I want people to dip their toe in. I don't want to spend money until they know they want to do it. You know, they want to dive into this niche.
Yeah. And of course, my first thought was, oh my gosh, this is complicated. I love the whole chapter you have on the yes buts.
Yep.
And, I initially thought, and it is complicated, folks. We don't want to give you the wrong idea that, hey, this is something you can just start, on your free time. It is something that is fairly complicated to do if you're going to make sure you've got it set up correctly. And I mean, it's a business, just like any other business. So you want to take the time to do it. But, it really was fascinating to me to think, okay, now one of the big yes buts that people have, I'm sure, is, oh my gosh, Chris, that's going to cost so much money. I don't have that much money laying around, and so talk to us a little bit about how this is something that really doesn't have to take your entire life savings to get going.
Well, I mean, how we buy, I'll tell you what our standard contracts are written up as, and they're used in most states. The standard lease purchase contract is written up with a $10 deposit in it, literally $10. Mm-hmm. When you can also purchase this in this will get people thinking, in your self-directed IRAs as well. Mm-hmm. So there's no limit to the profit. You're limited to how much you can contribute to an IRA, but not how much you can profit. Right. So you can actually do that in your IRA, in which case I say, look, put down maybe $100 or $500, but just to legitimize the IRA. But you don't need money to do these deals. And I'm talking even when we purchase and we do owner financing, we don't put a deposit down. Now, are there exceptions to everything I'm saying? Of course. Sure. We bought $1 million home on the water. It was $950, I think it was, on the ocean. Mm-hmm. And we did put down a down payment, a small one, albeit, but we put down a down payment. I think it was like 1%. Right. So, you don't need cash to do the deposit. Now, what do you need cash for? Well, you need some cash to get trained, right? You need some cash to generate leads, but it's not a lot. I'll give you a rough average. We have students doing anywhere from 1 to 1.5 deals a month. That's a lot when I tell you the average profit in a minute, but their overhead's going to run them between $480 and $650 a month. Right. Well, when
some
you
of those are marketing costs, your phone, things
everything,
like that.
Yeah, all the miscellaneous $50 here, $70 here. But here's the punchline with that. The average deal, all 3 paydays, you know what that means kind of because you read the book. There's 3 paydays per deal, cash now, cash monthly, cash down the road. It's around $75,000 for us. We go around the country, low of 45, that's out in Arizona, high of 110,000, that's in DC. Okay. So we range from 45 to 110 per deal. So you talk about an overhead of $500 or $600 but they can do a deal a month eventually. That's pretty cool.
Right. Well, and eventually, it is this thing where you have to work your way up to it. And I love in the book you talk about some things that went wrong, because things do go wrong, and some things like that. But let's kind of take, some time to go through some of the terms. You mentioned lease to buy, lease to own. What does that mean?
Okay, so let's pretend for a second that you have a home and you have a home that has a mortgage on it. Right. And you either have most people. So you either have zero equity or some equity. Right. The lease purchase basically says, okay, let's use some numbers. Let's say it's $300,000 value and you owe $250,000. Okay. The lease purchase says, if we agree on the $300,000 value, the lease purchase says we will make your mortgage payment every single month after we install our buyer. So we have it covered. And we will take care of maintenance, repairs, et cetera, because we're passing that on to the buyer. At the end of the term, so on or before, let's say 36 months, your mortgage gets paid off by us, and you get the $50,000 in equity that we agreed at the beginning was the equity amount you had. Now, that's pretty cool because remember I said we're paying off the mortgage and we're giving them the 50. The mortgage is not what it was 3 years ago, though, when I'm done, because the principal balance comes down every month, like any mortgage, and we get the benefit of that. And so that's a typical lease purchase. Now, how do you get that cashed out? How do you pay off the mortgage and give the 50?
Right, because most people have a 30-year mortgage, so you're not taking this on for, say, 25 years.
No, nor are we signing. This is important. I know you said it earlier and I did, but it's important for the listeners to know if they're not familiar. We're not assuming this loan either. The loan stays in the seller's name. They still
Yes, you're sending them money.
I'm actually going to send the mortgage company directly the mortgage payment, and my buyer, my tenant buyer, we call them, because we're going to do all rent to own. My tenant buyer is paying me something above what I'm paying that mortgage company. That's my monthly cash flow.
You need to make money. That's the whole point.
That's the idea.
So
Yep.
like if the mortgage is 1,000, you might charge 1,200.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the concept of rent to own. And in your book, you talk about usually it's, there's a variety of reasons for it, but it's, a fairly short period of time. And then it transitions into, they actually own the house. But my first thought was, does it end up costing them more? I mean, I remember, and, there still are these companies that, will rent you, say, a washing machine. And you look at the payment and you're spending as much as you could buy like 5 washing machines over the term of the lease. So what are the benefits for someone to say, okay, hey, I want to do rent to own?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So a bunch of benefits in no particular order. One is someone that needs a little credit enhancement or
Okay.
repair.
Mm-hmm.
Repair means something happened, a life event.
Oh yeah, things happen to people. They lose their job. They, whatever. Mm-hmm.
And it happens. I'll tell you, it's as high as 80%, 82% in some markets that says they can't today walk into a bank and get a loan. That's a big number of buyers.
Or they get a loan that they can never pay off. And then they're going to really do more damage.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of those people that have given up. Now, let me clarify before we move into the next category. Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of people that may call on a home that have bad credit, but they have bad credit because they've had 20 years of bad habits. That's not the buyer that's a good buyer.
Right. And you're running credit checks on people. Let's make sure people understand this. You're not going into those going, oh, hey, this will work. No, those people are not a good risk, and you're just politely sending them on their way.
Yeah, now they can have bad credit if we don't mind the story, like how did it get there?
Right.
And then we're going to
some
send
people, it's just they haven't had a job long enough to.
Yeah. They call that some seasoned credit. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we get a mortgage ready plan for them so that they know, okay, I'm going to work on this with your people you refer us to, and mm-hmm. we're going to get our credit up. You could also be self-employed contractors. They were used to, prior to 08, getting what they call stated income loans. You just walk in and you don't need to show tax returns or anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've done many of those in the years. So mm-hmm. Those don't exist anymore. They actually exist. The product does, but it's like 8 or 9%. So it's not a valid mortgage for the first-time home buyer, mm-hmm. certainly. So those are 2 reasons. Other reasons would be, hey, if I save more down payment, I can get a better rate or a better loan program. Mm-hmm. So that gives them time while they're rent to own to mm-hmm. save for a down payment as well. And to your earlier question, Deb, or a comment about does it cost them more? They're usually going to be paying around what they would pay if they owned it, maybe sometimes slightly higher, just depends mm-hmm. on what we have going on. Mm-hmm. They're going to pay the taxes. They're going to act and behave just like they own the home. Mm-hmm. The only difference is they don't have to get a mortgage yet. And the cool thing is they capture any market appreciation they're going to capture too, just like if they owned.
Nice.
That's pretty neat. You can't get that
mm-hmm.
renting.
Right. Yeah, and renting obviously has its benefits. My mother now rents. She's 86 years old. Really makes sense for her to rent. And because aside from anything else, something goes wrong and she calls her landlord. And he comes in and he fixes it. But for many people, home ownership really is good. And I think I saw something somewhere that said one of the biggest mistakes that millennials are making is they're not even thinking about home ownership. Right. And this seems like it would be, a good consideration for them to make, to think, hey, we could rent to own and all that money is actually going into the house. It's not that, you hit that and you start over. No, it goes into it.
Right, and they could actually, so some of the millennials to that point haven't thought about it, so they haven't prepped credit mm-hmm. or saved it down. Both of those issues could be handled during the rent-to-own program mm-hmm. and get them up to mortgage readiness, Mm-hmm.
Right. And I remember it was probably a car loan the first time where I applied for a loan. I had several outstanding student loans that I was merely paying along like I was supposed to, but those automatically took a ding on my credit because it was debt that I owed. And so, is probably the case with many younger people. I don't fall in that category anymore, but it is where, they have student loans, they have some things like that. And so they really don't have this stellar credit. So they just keep renting. And what they do is they kind of get themselves caught in that endless circle of we just can't make enough.
Yeah, and it just affects their debt to income ratio, right? Because mm-hmm. it's sitting out there and that gives them time to pay that down. So part of the plan, for example, mm-hmm. could be, great, you got 3 years. During that time, your income may increase a little bit. your student loans are going to come down. So now your ratios are
Right.
better for sure, for sure. And just think of this as an investor now for the people listening. So you're an investor and you have this buyer pool, 80% of the market, and in some markets it varies, that can't get a loan, and you can help them. Well, that's pretty big demand. That's a good place to be.
Right. And you deal in several different types of properties. You do single family homes, you do multifamily, and you do commercial, and so we might end up touching on all of those. But for most people, I'm assuming they're probably going to want to focus on just one. So they're going to do single family homes, or maybe they've got enough money that they're going to do multifamily, or maybe they're really interested in commercial. But you've been doing it a long time, and so that's why you're able to do, the variety of deals.
Yeah, so good point. So on the residential single family side, that's where we do focus and then teach, like you said, the new people coming in to do that. You're always going to, even in a market pullback, you're always going to rent. In fact, rents go up then. So you can always fill these singles. It's nice for them to know if they run into a 6-unit, a 4-unit, an empty building, they know where to turn. They can turn to our support. They can turn to us if they're one of our associates, and we tell them, walk them through it. Or we say, don't, if it's not worth it. People bring us land and want us to do
and you look at it and go, no, there's a reason
it's not going to pay you tomorrow. It's cool to have it on the side, but it's not going to pay you tomorrow. So one of our students was doing a land deal, and I'm working with him on it. He got excited and started bringing more. And I said, whoa. One is good enough. It's going to cost you time and money to work on this. You can't throw all your resources and wait 3 years for money.
Right. Well, and one of the things you mentioned in your book is if you're doing multifamily, which is that considered 2 or more? So like a duplex up?
Yeah, I usually say 4 and up, only because in my world the 3 is tough to do.
Yeah, it's just kind of an odd. Yeah, and 2 could actually be, somebody's renting out your basement. But yeah, for multifamily, one of the things, and I really like this because, of course, that was one of my other, buts. You hire management companies. And so, that's who is actually coordinating with your tenants, making sure that, if they have issues, those are taken care of and all of those various things.
Yeah, definitely. If you have, we've even had singles with a management company, depending on who the renter is. If we have some, spotty here and there, we might have a regular rental versus the rent to own. It's just not worth you messing with that. You could be out getting more deals versus trying to babysit, what maintenance needs to be done and all these other headaches that can pop up. You don't need it. You need a layer of, frankly, of privacy too, I think.
Right. Oh yeah. And a management company, I mean, they're very skilled in that. I mean, that's obviously their specialty. So they have the contacts for the plumbers, the appliance repairman, all those various things, and you're not having to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So now, as I was reading your book, one of the things that struck me, there's, all these commercials down here in Atlanta, and, I'm sure that they're in various places, but there's several of the big companies down here that will buy your house. You never have to show it. And I love how they word the commercials. You don't have to do your dishes, make your bed, all those various things.
Yeah.
And as a seller, I mean, that's extremely appealing because I don't have to make my bed, do my dishes, all those various things. And so, of course, what that ends up being is for sale by owner. And of course, my first thought is, well, wait a minute, that's too good to be true. They're going to offer me, half of what market value is. And I'm assuming, as the seller, you are kind of willing to give up a bit to not have to do your dishes and make your bed. But it's great because, and obviously, we don't want to knock any realtors out there because, that's a great market. But this is, how you do a lot of your business is you find those for sale by owners and do exactly that. You say, hey, we're just going to deal directly with you. You don't have to show your house. You don't have to do your dishes, all those various things.
Yeah, we do. So the people that are buying, like the rehabbers and the flippers, sometimes they're called wholesalers. They are buying, or trying to buy 40 to 60 cents on the dollar. So sometimes we'll talk to a seller and they'll be like, oh yeah, you guys are going to offer me. No. We offer you market value. Let's have a conversation. But we are different. And I definitely don't knock the realtors. To your point, I was one for 18 years. We have realtors that understand what we do. And so if a house doesn't fit in their box, so to speak, they can't get it done.
Like
in
you
their
said,
mold.
somebody with bad credit might be,
Bad credit on the buyer side, seller side. Maybe they owe too much. They can't pay a fee. So they're kind of stuck. they'll refer them to us. And so it's a cool thing for us to interact with realtors, because I know both sides of that. But yeah, it's pretty simple with us. We go in as investors. If we like the home, you know, you're not showing it to us 17 times and going through all kinds of weird inspections.
You're just going and you buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved in your book where you were talking about, you know, if you're getting ready to go do a visit, you ask them questions. You know, do you have a dog in the house? You know, is everybody in the house dressed?
Yeah.
Which means you've had some situations that probably weren't exactly something you wanted to.
I was just going to say that. How do you think I know those? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I remember, you know, when we were selling our house in Colorado, talking with the photographer, and some of the stories that he told me were just unbelievable. You know, and you know, and of course we see that all the time when we're looking on Zillow, on whatever it is. It's like, really? You wanted to have the picture taken like that?
Yeah.
You know, but oh yeah, you know, the stories you could tell.
Yep, you bet. No, it can be a little crazy. So there's just, once you tie into our system, there's a protocol, you follow it, you know. And I said something earlier, and it just made me think of it again about time. Unfortunately, people set expectations up, right? And you mentioned commercials and things like that. This is going to take time, and we put it out there that we want people that are committed to run a business for 36 months minimum without second guessing themselves or looking back, because anything prior to that, short of that, you're not starting a business to your earlier point when you open the show. You know, you're just teetering. So I don't want people to say, I want to try that. All right. No, look at all the free stuff first, decide if you're going to do it, and then let's commit to this thing for 3 years and have an amazing experience financially, you know?
You know, and the process of buying the home takes time too, you know, both from the buyer's perspective and from the seller's.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, you know, they've been, you know, one of the commercials here, we can do it in 5 days. No, they can't, you know, because you can't run a title check and
I was just going to say that.
Various things, you know,
you're spot on.
Longer to do that. Now it might actually take them 5 days to look at it and go, okay, we're going to do this.
Right.
But the process takes longer, you know, and just as it does when you're buying a house. You know, when we moved here to Atlanta, we almost got ourselves in a bind. We knew that we were moving. We were being relocated by my husband's employer. It was a great relocation. That was one of the nice things. They were handling a lot of the paperwork.
Right.
But, you know, we piddle-poked around, and then eventually, you know, it was like, okay, well, we guess we'll sell our house. Well, the people that bought our house literally wanted it in 2 weeks because they were getting ready to have a baby, and she needed to nest, you know, and do all of those things. Well, of course, the problem, now we had the paperwork to the point where we could probably do it that fast. The problem was we hadn't been to Atlanta to find a house to move into, you know, and so it was one of those things that, you know, we had to do very quickly. But yeah, normally it's 30 to 60 days when you're doing something like this.
No, yeah. On the buy side, even if we do terms, by the time you, like you said, run title and just get the basics set up, a lease purchase, if the house is empty and they need to, you know, stop paying the mortgage, they need debt relief, then that can happen fairly quick. But you didn't buy it; you're just doing a lease purchase. That can be, you know, days. But yeah, on the purchase, it takes time.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know why I just thought of this at this point, but one of the things that I really liked reading about in your book was that things happen to people. You know, and sometimes things happen, and that's why you end up being able to buy their property. But I love the examples that you gave where you had people who were renting to buy, and something happened with them. You know, you mentioned one gentleman was diagnosed with cancer. You know, all these various things, and the way you operate, you're able then to help them. You know, you were able to give them, you know, a lesser rent for 6 months, you know, all these various things. And of course, that's a sound business move. You could have said, no, sorry, you're out the door.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have to, you know, have somebody do paint, recarpet, clean, all that, put it on the market, do all of those various things, which costs you far more than just keeping that good tenant in there to start with.
Yeah, and we want to keep in mind now with the tenant buyers, to your point, we want to get them to the finish line. The finish line is they get their own mortgage, they're cleaned up in every way, and they're ready to go. So if something like that happens, we revisit and say, all right, great, Deb, is your intent still, I know you have this curveball, but is your intent in 3 years still to get a mortgage? Yes. Okay, great. So let's work through it morally and ethically so we help you. If it's, I had a student today, actually, to this point, sent me some information on a call he recorded because the buyers just had a bunch of life events and said to him, you know what, we can't go forward. No matter what you do for us, we're not going to go forward. Very amicably, let's show the house again. You can put another buyer in here.
Right.
So that happens too. But you just got to find that out.
Situations change.
Yeah, stuff happens.
Right. Which is how you get a lot of your property. People move. They have, like we said, they might lose jobs. Divorces, I'm sure, are probably one of the things
we do.
And of course, they want out of it fairly quickly because they want to finish things, or it's an estate, all of these various things. So you mentioned in your book, you have to continually be looking for these opportunities, reading Craigslist, reading the ads, driving around and seeing the signs, all those various things.
Yep. I would love it when, in the ideal sense, we and students have like all these different funnels of ways leads are coming in, right? You mentioned for sale by owners. This for rent by owners. Those are great because you sometimes get frustrated landlords that say, I don't want it anymore.
Right. I've just had too many bad renters.
Yeah. Bad experiences. So divorce, you mentioned. Anything that is a curveball, yes, that does help us. Now, to the other side of the coin, there are plenty of properties, and I may have used one in the book, where they're free and clear. There's no mortgage. They're not stressed at all, but it's time to sell, and they can wait for their cash.
They want to move to Florida.
Yeah, the time to move on or downsize or whatever, and they don't need the cash right away. If they can wait for their cash, they're going to do better with us. They're going to get a better price because we're going to do it over time.
Right. And it helps them because they're getting, payments that are steady and, and consistent and so they're able to budget all of those various things.
Yeah. Some of them do it for tax reasons, estate planning reasons, accounting reasons. The building we're in, the gentleman was advertising it, which is really odd where we live on an island here, 3-town island, very odd to do terms. And he was offering it because he's a little bit older and he's got all kinds of property and didn't want a cash lump sum right now. And so there's plenty of people out there. Here's a stat for you. Roughly speaking, in the United States is about 1/3 of the properties are free and clear, no mortgage.
Wow.
That's a lot of property.
That is. Well, and I mean, you just figure a lot of people are obviously baby boomers who, may have been in their property for long enough to have paid off the mortgage.
Right.
All of those various things. And yeah, I mean, there's what that means clearly is that there's a lot of opportunities out there to buy those homes.
Yeah. And think about it. If they're debt free, meaning no mortgage on their house, I don't know what else they have, but if they have no mortgage on their house, they probably don't need the cash right away, or they would have already pulled it out. So they're a great candidate for owner financing. Just go talk to them. That's it. And we tell students how to do that exactly.
Right. Yeah. And let's talk about that a little bit, because one of the things that you talk about is having scripts. And we tell people that, when you're calling on something, it doesn't matter what your business is, you need to know what you're going to say. Otherwise, you get them on the phone and, you're going, where's the, and all these various things. And it's funny. I have a friend here in Atlanta who is a realtor who he calls every single person in his database. Doesn't matter when the last time was that he dealt with them, once a quarter.
Yeah.
And he has that script and he goes through because 99% of the time he gets somebody's voicemail. And so he's got that, but then he is prepared in case they actually answer the phone and go, well, hey, how you doing? And the other thing that I love about what he does it in front of a mirror. So he's talking to someone, especially if he's getting voicemail over and over again. But you talk about it in your book to practice it, because you're asking people for, to sell what might be their family home, all these various things. And so you need to have your script ready with all of your answers. Are they going to throw you a curveball? Sure. On occasion they might, but you can be prepared. And I love you tell them, record it and listen to it.
Yeah. So I was thinking that as you were talking. And so we do a few things. We provide them the scripts, right? Buyers and seller scripts. We tell them to practice. Sure. We tell them to role play with other students in the groups. We tell them if they can in their state, some you can, some you can't. Single party consent states, they can record their calls. And if they're a student, we actually critique them. So it's a very fast way to learn. And lastly, we have in some of our programs, we have live calls so they can listen to them over and over and over. And that gets them embedded and well ingrained so they can speak it very easily.
The other thing that I love that you do, I mean, obviously you've got lots of marketing that you do to reach people, and some of it is just picking up that phone and calling. But I love the mail campaigns that you send that look like somebody wrote it. So then you're like, ooh, I got a letter, and then people open it.
Yeah, so we teach the people. Okay, so the overhead number I gave you earlier in the show, $500-600. Doesn't include mailing. Why? Because if you're new, I don't want you doing it. But once you're more established and you say, look, I've got the lead flow going, I want to increase, or I want to attack this niche of owner free and clear homes, then okay, we talk about doing a couple thousand we call them yellow letters. Yeah, yellow letter mailings, and they're effective. For every 2,000 or so we do, we get a deal. So it makes sense.
Right. Yeah, because they're, I think you said, about $1.25 for each one. And so then when you figure it back out, it still has made you money. Yeah,
no question. I do it. It's got to be predictable. We didn't talk about this yet, but everything we teach is predictable. I mean, I can tell you on average, not for your market, how many calls you're going to have to talk to sellers, how many of those to get an appointment, how many of those to actually get a home under contract, and how many of those to get a check in hand. I mean, I can tell you the numbers. So then it's just a matter of you saying as a student, okay, I get the numbers. Here's how many I want to do. Therefore, I got to talk to this many sellers. Are you willing to do that? Yes or no? It's that simple.
Yeah. I want X number of dollars per month.
Yeah.
That means, and then you work backwards from there. And I mean, that's just basic business. I know that I have to call on a certain number of people and I'm going to get a 10% response rate, whatever. And if we don't know those, then, we need to be figuring those out.
Yeah, because then you don't have a business, you have a job. If you, if you don't know that or you're winging it, that's why I tell the new students, track it. We tell you how to track it. We give you a form to track it. Because if not, you literally are just winging it.
Right. And again, what I love about what you have is you've got a process that is tried and true is probably the easiest way to say it. Is it going to vary? Sure. And it might vary from state to state, region to region. I mean, if you're in an area that, has had a big economic downturn, I would imagine Detroit would be a little bit different area than if you were trying Florida, say. But the principles are still the same.
Yeah, they are. That's a good point because it works everywhere. It's not, your market's no different. What will vary, Deb, is let's say, I'll pick markets right now that I can think of. If you're in Florida, you may be talking to more people to get a deal done than if you're in Pennsylvania. I have students in both areas, for example. So you just got to know the numbers and the math. It's not, and people always say, well, what do you think about the market? What's the market going to do? There is no one market. There's too many pockets of markets around the country.
Well, and, I always love it. It's a buyer's market. It's a seller's market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends.
Yeah. We were really hoping that Amazon would put its second headquarters here because we thought, ooh, that's going to do a lot for our property values. Yeah. Maybe it would have, maybe it didn't. And, and then Amazon went elsewhere.
Well, what kills me is some people think that's going to be like a double or tripling like overnight.
Right.
No, it helps. But
well, and, when you have, say, an industry that moves into your area, more than likely they have to build, and they will be bringing people in, but they're going to hire a lot of people who are already there. I mean, I always love it when they say, oh, well, it will bring 20,000 jobs to the area. Well, they'd really like it if if 19,900 of those jobs were people who were already there. So people who are getting all excited, hey, they're building here. Nah, maybe not so much. Obviously, it depends on what they're building. They're having to bring skilled labor in, some things like that. But it must be, fascinating from your point of view to see these trends and see how things change. I like the way you have it set up. It just kind of consistently goes along.
Yeah. So if the market, well, actually, let me comment two things on them building, let's say in the area. Let's comment on that. Remember, they're going to get some people angry at that too, because they're going to be the one that's right outside the window is going to be this new building, and they're going to want to sell. So there's two sides of that coin. And then I'm sorry, what was the other piece you said? 'Cause I wanted to comment on that. What was it? The second piece? Trends, I think.
Oh yeah. It must be fascinating for you to look at the trends and see but the way you're set up, your business just goes, pretty much consistently. It's not that the trends are one way or another.
Yeah. So right now we're going to buy the same amount of homes probably next year and probably 3 years ago. All the changes is that ratio of how many people we're talking to and how we're buying and how long the term is. Other than that, we're going to still do the same amount because it is predictable and we just keep trucking along. Yeah.
Right. And there are certainly trends with, say, baby boomers getting older, that, we need houses that don't have stairs,
Yeah.
and some things like that. But there is, yes, the baby boomers are getting older, but the millennials and is it Gen Z that's behind them? We've run out of numbers. There can be nobody else born, and they're needing places, whether they're just renting, just flat out renting, or renting to own, or, all these various things. It's not that the population stops. It's just that things change.
And they shift. You're exactly right. So a bunch of those boomers we've done a bunch of these where they have several homes. So they're just liquidating and or downsizing and or getting rid of all but one.
Right.
So it's an opportunity for us because, again, sometimes they don't need or want the cash right away.
Right. Or they really like the fact that it's going to be staggered out. So again, it's good for their budget, all of those various things.
Yeah, and not handling it. So they might just want closure. Like you said, you got to go through the whole process of, I got to prep the home, I got to show it, I got to deal with that. I mean, we're in the business and my wife can't stand that. So it's just not dealing with having to show the home and do all that stuff for them. That's probably a big issue.
Right. Well, and especially if it's a decision that is very sad for them. They might be having to move, for whatever reason. Many times it is age, it is health, some things like that. And so if you can just come in and say, you know what, you don't have to put away all your doodads. Now you need to eventually put them away because you need to pack them.
Yeah.
But, then you're going on to something, that is hopefully, going to work for you. But yeah, to me, that was always, I hated it the most, the showings, because we have animals, so we have to get the animals out and, all these various things. And so I see those, signs, hear those ads, we'll buy your, and I'm thinking, okay, sign me up. That's what I want to do.
What's good for these guys to hear too, the listeners, is we're talking about the showings in the homes. We'll typically go to a home once to purchase it. And if we're going to buy it on our own finance, we're probably going to do an inspection, but we'll go once. And on some of them, we don't even have to go because we'll have what we call boots on the ground. It could be an inspector or a builder or an appraiser. They'll work for us. They'll go to the house. They'll produce a report and they'll send it to us. And I say that because some people do want to do this kind of remotely or from their house. Not good on all deals because you'll miss some deals, but you can do that remotely. And we've done several like that.
Right. And that's just a matter of having that trusted partner that's in that, in that area. And so they do the one inspection visit, and if you've got dirty dishes, that's okay. But, you need to see, okay, is it still structurally sound? Are there issues? There's, another commercial that's going on here in town that's talking about, is your house now slanting down? I'm thinking, okay, that's really not good.
Yeah.
But, these things happen and I think that's one of the things that people don't always understand is, wait a minute, somebody wants to come into our house. Why can't they just buy it? Well, no, it's an investment for them too, and they don't want to buy it if it's slanting downwards or needs a whole bunch of work. But now they might buy it knowing it needs all of those things, but then, that's a totally different matter.
Well, it is. And I will say this, generally speaking, about the tenant buyers we put in our homes and that they could eventually do themselves. They're less picky, I guess is the best word, because some of these people, they'll be in tears happy because they thought they could never buy some of these people. I'll give you an example real quick. She actually became a student, which is a cool story. But she called us. She had in vitro treatments, and this went on for like a while, and it would cost six figures.
Oh, yeah. Lots of money, lots and lots of money.
Yeah, and it caused her to go through bankruptcy. Now, luckily, she had a business that was producing good cash flow, so that's a great example of what I said to you earlier. What caused it? Okay, fine. Now I can wait with you because it's actually a very valid reason. Now, they ended up buying a rent-to-own home with us. Have already cashed it out. They ended up selling one of their other homes with us on terms, and then they became a student. And they've done several deals. That's kind of a cool story. So she's worked the buy, the sell. Now she's a student because she loved it so much.
Right. And again, it's not that you're putting, $100,000 into this.
Right.
And that is one of the things you mentioned in your book is, in many cases, people will say, okay, I've been laid off. I want to start a side business, side hustle, the new, in phrase for right now.
Yeah.
And so they want to buy a franchise, and okay, that's great because they're thinking all the marketing's done for me, all these various things. Well, those ain't cheap. Right. And in many cases, they are a heck of a lot of work. And so what I like about, what you're talking about, it's still a lot of work, but there's not that $100,000 that you're putting into it, or, whatever a franchise price might be.
Yeah, it's the cost of those, and I'm not poo-pooing those, but it's the cost of
Some of
those,
those
and
work
it's also
perfect for people, obviously.
yeah, and it's the ongoing though. They've got all kinds of fees.
Right.
I've looked into several and never pulled the trigger mainly for that reason. By the time you get done all your fees, your NOI is just ridiculously tight. Now, think about the NOI, by the way, the net operating income. If you're looking at a business like we're doing, remember I said earlier, the 3 paydays runs 45,000 to 110.
Right.
Well, think about that. Now, what do we say you're putting up for a deposit? 10, maybe 100.
Right.
That's kind of an infinite
folks,
return.
not 10,000.
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah. So that return's crazy. That's almost infinite.
Right. And that's basically, I'm assuming you have to put some money to actually make it a transaction.
If you purchase, that's a good point. So if you do lease purchase, you're putting nothing else up after the $10. But if you're buying owner financing and you're asking the seller to accept no money down up front from you, well, you've got to probably count on paying their tax stamps if your state, which most do, charges tax stamps to transfer that property.
Okay.
So if it's a $200,000 or $300,000 house, the seller typically might pay, call it $800 to $1,800 in tax stamps. We might pay that, and that would be our quasi down payment. It's not a lot of money.
Right.
And you'll have that already because you're putting a tenant buyer in the home that's putting up money. So you're usually not out of pocket, even if you do that.
Right. And again, it's a matter of knowing your figures. If you know you're going to have to put up 800, well, then you need a down payment of 1,000 from them. You don't want 700 because then you're in the hole.
Yeah. Or a whole lot more even. But yes, absolutely. You got to make sure you're covered. Yep.
Right.
So you'll negotiate that with the seller. You'll say, well, I maybe can give you this, but you full well know that's coming from your tenant buyer.
Right. Yeah. And it is also, you need to be reasonable about this. It's not, okay, I have to pay 800, so I'm going to make you put down a deposit of 8,000. Well, if they could do that, they might be just, buying, doing a regular mortgage or something like that.
Well, you made me think of something else very important to that point. So people will say to us, well, wait a minute. If the buyer is buying this home we just did one for $639,000. Why can't they buy a home a regular mortgage? Look, right. Post 2008, like I did, people in executive jobs get hurt too. This is not just the first time buyers.
Yeah, their credit took hits.
Yep. And so here's a good example. This gentleman's doing a house with us for $639,900. He makes lots of money, more than enough to afford the house. And so why can't he go buy it mortgage-wise? He never understood credit. He's new to the country, say 8 years ago. And so now he doesn't have bad credit. He has no credit. It's time to build it. And with right coaching, we send him to the right people. He'll build a nice credit and then he'll close on that house. Well, that's a perfect buyer. He has good income. He has no credit, no bad credit. Right. Well, that's great. So it's not just the lower end. And by the way, to get in a home, it's similar to buying. They're going to put somewhere between 3 and 10% down. Or if they don't, we just have a glorified renter and we don't do rentals. Nothing wrong with it. We just don't do them.
Right. And you mentioned no credit. I mean, no credit is a good thing also, for people who have that. I mean, it means they might not have credit cards. They might not have, those student loan debts that we talked about.
Right. All
these various things. But yeah, it means they have no credit or their credit is very low, because, I mean, that's part of what credit looks at. Have you had these debts that you've paid off? I mean, all those various things.
And if not, we'll help them build it. So that's a good thing. This gentleman's a great example of that.
And that I think is what I've seen maybe some of the millennials is they don't have credit card debt. They don't have some of those things because they have been, pretty frugal with their money. But again, it means they don't have credit.
Yeah. I don't agree with this piece I'm going to say now, but it's unfortunate, necessary evil right now in society. And that is people check credit for almost everything now.
Oh yeah. They check credit for jobs, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and it's hurting people. So you do want to know how to do that. And the people we use, I think everybody in our family has gone through it. Why? Because you can always get better credit. If you have 680 credit and you go get a loan, great. But guess what? If you have 780, you're going to get a better rate. And you're going to get a better term. So why not enhance it?
Right.
Everyone listening can do that. Forget being an investor right now for 2 seconds. Just go and enhance your credit anyway.
Make sure that it's good and do what you can to enhance it. And for some people, that might actually mean that you get a credit card. And then of course the important part is that you pay that off every month. I mean, that's kind of the important thing there is you're not getting that credit card like, oh gosh, hello, raise my hand.
Yeah.
When I got out of college and got the credit card, it was like, oh, let's see how fast we can run it up. Well, that was not a good thing to do. But yeah, you get that credit card, you establish that you're going to pay it off on a timely manner. And that's what gives you good credit.
Yeah, and if you want to drive your score up, keep it below a third. Keep it below 33%. So if you have a 10 grand line, you want to keep that below 3,300. It'll drive your credit score up.
Right.
Because you're managing it, and it shows, and that's what they want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not all that difficult. And obviously, as we've said, there are things that come up that, might ding your credit, but it's fixable. And the important thing is to fix that and get it taken care of as fast as you can.
Yeah, we actually teach on this very note, we teach the investor students how to set up proper lines of credit, and then secondarily how to then establish business credit.
Right.
So it's not your social security number, it's your business entity, right back to your first point when you open the show.
Yep. Oh yeah. And just because you have those lines of credit doesn't mean that you need to use them. That's the other thing that's another thing is, get those. But again, it's as Chris just said, set it up as that business. You're not using your own personal credit to do it. And so you're going to have obviously some expenses right there at the start, but get that set up to protect yourself. You don't want to lose your own house, or your cars, all these various things. Set it up as a business because again, I want to be writing a check to, a business entity as opposed to Chris Fontaine himself. Because then I'm thinking, wait a minute, what about that? And you mentioned BBB. I mean, you've got that as an example in your book where you lost a deal because somebody looked at him and went, wait a minute, I don't even remember the BBB. Therefore, you must not be real.
I remember like it was yesterday. Yeah. And so obviously now, well, not just us, but every time we learn a lesson like that, we pass it along to the students. Right. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and it might be that what you do is you join your Chamber of Commerce, trade associations, things like that. You don't have to be BBB, but you need to establish that you're a good corporate citizen is maybe.
Yeah, be out there. Yeah.
Well, Chris, one of the things I wanted to ask you mentioned at the start of the program that virtually your entire family works with you. What is that like? In many cases, I would think it would be absolutely fascinating, but what is it like to work with your family?
No, it's pretty cool because everybody's got a vested interest, number one. Number two, the level of commitment is through the roof. I don't know I'm sure there are people out there that work that way, but it's odd when it's not family. And then everyone is, we've been asked this a lot, everyone's on kind of an incentive, meaning if we do deals, great. If we don't, then it's not like everybody's got a free ride. No one does. Right. We have employees also. They obviously have to be on some kind of a pay structure, but we're all on just per deal. Yeah, so it's fun.
And it's, I would think that it would be fun to be working with your family, to have that. And what I like is they each have very specific roles that fit with their expertise. And I like that because, so many times we see somebody who brings in son, daughter, nephew, niece, whoever it is, because they have to.
Right.
And it's not a good fit. So there are times where it's okay for them to go work somewhere else.
Yeah, you said two things that apply to us. One is the roles; they kind of just organically happen, and the second is nobody was made to because we kind of just went organically, meaning they asked us to come in, and the roles kind of take form. Still to this day, they're always evolving, and they end up falling into the right categories where everybody likes doing what they're doing.
Well, Chris, we've got about 5 minutes left. So, tell us a little bit more about, because the tips that you've got and in your book and in your classes, clearly people can learn anywhere. There's a variety of different resources. But tell us specifically how, what someone would get if they were to work with you.
Yeah, so that what they can do, I'll walk you through kind of with just a few minutes we have, kind of a protocol, if you will. So in addition to the book, it's not a catch-all like you said. It's to supplement anything else you're looking at that we have. But they can, if they want to deal with listening to me for another hour, they can go to a free webinar, and that's going to give them some more examples. Like you and I talked verbally about it, but this is going to give you examples and deal breakdowns, and it's free. So you get a whole hour of, is this something I want to delve deeper into? If they do, there's an online academy. And the online academy has, it's 60 plus videos. It's 90 different things in there. There's audio. And there's 10 modules, and that walks them through the whole business. And the question we get all the time is, but does it tell me like how to set things up and And like you and I talked earlier, and the answer is yes. It's A through Z. It's us saying, here's how we operate. Here's how you can operate. That comes with email support. It comes with phone calls from us. So it's pretty hands-on. We're all about doing deals, Deb, versus just selling product. If we wanted to sell product, we could probably cut that course up into 10 different things. It's not. It's about you getting deals done in the field. And obviously, if they want to listen to the podcast, they can listen to that as well, because that's going to give them a variety of different deals and different things to do. And I'm happy to give, if you want me to talk about that book link, I can give a free book.
We're going to show the book again. Da-da-da. For those who are watching as opposed to listening, I'm holding the book up to the camera.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon, but what I'll do is I'll give you a link. It's simple. It's free, FREE, and then SREC for Smart Real Estate Coach, free SRECbook.com. And I do mean with shipping. So I know the listeners are probably used to go get my free book, and they go in, they got to put their credit card in for shipping. We will pay for the shipping. It's free. Just note that you're on Deb's show and you get the book for free.
Right. And as I said, it's a fast read. And I think, from my perspective, what I got out of it was it really is a way to figure out, okay, is this something that I think I want to do and explore more? Because it answers a lot of the basic questions, as we mentioned, a lot of the yes buts. The yes, but it takes too much time. Yes, but it takes too much money. All of those various things. But again, then it is going to take time to learn how to do this. Now, it can be a side business. It can be your full business. It can be something you're doing because you retired. All of those various things. But I love learning about this because, like I said, I had absolutely no knowledge about this. Would I do it? I don't know. It's, but yeah, I mean, it is fascinating to me to read this. And I think it was very, very interesting.
Well, I appreciate it. And if somebody wants to just mention your show, if they end up getting what we call a free strategy call, we give that with the webinar. If they end up getting that, just let them know that to put in that they're on your show, and I'm happy to chat with them.
Great. And it is something that I'm sure people, they still have the yes, but questions, and all of those various things. And for some people, you probably are going to talk them out of it. And that's okay too. Excuse me. It just means it wasn't a right fit right then.
I couldn't agree more. It's because there's no sense of, again, dipping your toe in to try something for 30 or 60 days. It's do your free due diligence, decide if you want to do it, and then run.
Right. Well, Chris, what wisdom would you like to leave our listeners and our viewers?
You know what? Whether it's real estate or it doesn't matter what it is that you're interested in, because I know you deal with a variety of different topics. Just know this, or take this approach. Find out whatever that niche is, real estate or not, and then find a mentor in whatever it is that you're looking to do.
We didn't even talk about mentors and the importance of them.
That's okay. So I'll try to hit it now from a 10,000 foot view. And then make sure they're still doing what it is that you want to do, though. Real estate, even it magnifies this, but you've got to have someone that's still doing what you want to do. If they're current with what you want to do, then do what I said earlier, put the blinders on for 3 years. So whether it's our niche or someone else in real estate's niche or another business, just find a mentor, because success leaves clues, and it's been done. Just go find them and latch onto them.
Right. And in your book, you talk about masterminds and all sorts of just very good business strategies.
Yeah. I mean, masterminds are important. I belong to masterminds that are outside of real estate for that reason. You get clear, fresh perspective.
Right. Well, Chris, tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
They can just go to smartrealestatecoach.com. There's a contact button there. There's a support button and phone numbers there. And they can also go to smartrealestatecoachpodcast.com. And again, I'm happy to interact with them, just to have them mention the show.
Perfect. I love it. Well, Chris, any final words you want to leave with our listeners and our viewers?
No, on the mentor thought, though, just know that you can do it. This is not brain science. It's very predictable. I know we jumped into a lot of stuff we threw at them, but it's not brain science. You can do it if you choose to do it.
And I think that maybe is the thing I want to leave people with was I started, as I said, thinking, oh my gosh, this is complicated. This is too hard. This is too all of those various things. And after even just, chatting with you and reading the book, I thought, this is doable. This is something, that really isn't going to, I was all prepared to tell you I just fried my brain reading your book, and it was like, no, I didn't. It was something that was very good.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Great. Well, I am Deb Creer. I have been having a wonderful time talking with Chris Prefontaine. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.